Howdy, I'm Derek, and in this video I'm going to walk through 10 new features that the Microsoft Excel team released over the past 12 months or so as of the end of October in 2025. These are powerful features that are going to help you navigate faster, the content's going to be there, optimize your files, and even some new functions that you can leverage. The team has certainly been hard at work, so let's dive in. The first of these is the navigation pane. So if you go over into the View ribbon tab, you'll see navigation right there below the label. So just click that, and what you'll see is a list of several items. You're going to see sheets, and within those you'll see items like ranges, shapes that are used, tables, charts, etc. So if we search for the word checkbox, notice that we can click on that and jump over to that page. Little hint, that'll be another feature we'll look at in a minute. But notice that this stays over here, so you can use that if you want to. If it gets a little cluttered, you can always collapse into the different sheets, and it just helps you search and navigate your files. Just one of many tools that'll help you do that. Okay, so that's the first one. Second one is Focus Cell. This is really slick. Okay, this is going to help you show what column and row that you have highlighted on your cell. So it helps when you're presenting, or if you're just losing track of where your cursor is, you're drowning in a sea of data. This is going to help. So if you go up here, same ribbon we were just on, the View ribbon tab. If you click Focus Cell, notice that as you move around with your cell, it's going to highlight the row and the column for you. Okay. Now what's also cool, you can change the color if you want to. Notice there's a bunch of different colors. It's going to overlay on top of any other colors you have, which is really cool because there have been some hacks you could do over the years with VBA events, and it's neat, but you kind of have to have a macro file, enabled file to do that. This is going to overlay the color on top of any other formatting you already have. Okay. The other neat thing is that when this came out as well, if you were to search for something, so if let's say we're going to search for the word focus, check this out. It's going to highlight the row in the column where that first find result is. Even if you don't have Focus Cell turned on, it's going to do that. So pretty darn cool. Okay. The next thing, this really didn't get much publicity. It just kind of appeared. But if you were to right click, so I'm going to click right click here. And then if you go up to the very top, there's a little search box. So if you search for, let me try that again here. I must have clicked something I didn't realize. If you search for a term like filter, notice it's going to give you all of these results. Help in Excel has gotten tremendously better. Back in the day, it was so bad people would pry off the F1 help shortcut key just to avoid pressing it. It would take several seconds to go away. It's gotten a lot better, and they've embedded it right into the right-click menu. The other thing you do if you have a menu button to the right of your spacebar key is just click that and then click the up button, and you can start filtering or searching without even using your mouse. So very good one there. I've had some good results, especially on trying out new features like all the ones we're talking about today. Okay, so some helpful stuff for navigating there. Let's move on into content. Checkbox. I know this seems silly, but it's actually quite helpful. What this does is it inserts a checkbox. Just go up here to the Insert menu and click Checkbox. Inserts a checkbox. You can format it if you want to. Make it red, make it, maybe make it pink or whatever. And it really just gives you a visual representation of true and false. So if I highlight one that's already in place, notice it says false or true. What I find really helpful is combining this with conditional formatting here. So you can see like if it's both bought and packed, it's green. If it's just bought, it's orange. If it's neither, it's red and not highlighted. To select one or more of those, okay, you can click the space button or you can click it. To do multiple, just highlight multiple cells, press space. You can toggle them on and off like that. Okay, so really cool. And again, it's more for the benefit of the user as a visual representation of true, false, on, yes, no, etc. In cell images is our next one. If you have not done this yet, it's really cool. It's a great way to put in like little logos or icons, etc. So you can do this in a couple of ways. One is to just insert them. So you go over to Insert, Pictures, or it might say Illustrations if you've got a more condensed ribbon. Place in cell is the key there, okay? So if you wanted to use, maybe let's do like a stock image or an icon or something, or you can go search for one. We'll just use these cool little 3D specs here. But notice what it does, it puts that in cell, okay? So it tells you what that is, or it would say picture if it's one of your own pictures. You can do a little bit of the formatting there in terms of the color and in terms of the alignment, whatnot. That's one way, is to directly insert it. Another way is to use the image function. So you can kind of see what I did there. And why this is helpful is you can dynamically build the URL or the file path that creates the image. So in this case, I'm using quickchart.io, which is my favorite way to do dynamic QR codes like you're seeing here. And it has several arguments where you can put in the URL, the color, the icon's URL, the size, etc. Okay, and it'll automatically return that. Now, a lot of times I'll have it build my QR code, but then I want to save it down and maybe put it in a presentation. So to do that, just right click, whether it's with the image function or whether it's just been inserted, picture in cell, create reference. And what that's going to do is create a reference just like you're seeing here. So that's linked back to the first one. So if I was to change that URL, it would then change this overlaid image. Really cool stuff. Great way to build images dynamically. I have a whole bunch of icons, QR codes especially are probably my favorite use of this. The next thing is show changes. Guys, we've been waiting for this for a long time, especially those of us that started our careers in the land of audit. So to go see this, it's another pane, kind of like the navigation pane. Go over to review, show changes. And the reason this is so thoughtful is because it says who did what and when. And your file has to be on OneDrive or SharePoint to make this work correctly. But it shows you who did it. Remember I put those 3D glasses in there a minute ago and recolored it. So it's going to do that and allows you to filter the changes, okay, to specific areas of your workbook. All right, so great audit trail. For the longest time, we've always wondered, well, we don't know if something changed. Okay, there's no like merge functionality like you have in Word, but now we have the ability to track changes in kind of a thoughtful way. Okay, so very helpful. Similarly is check performance. So within the review tab, you have this new option called check performance. And what this does is it looks for several ways to optimize your workbook. Okay, whether it's unused formatted cells, whether it's just things that are, maybe complex formulas, things that either aren't needed or that can be cleaned up very quickly. So you could just click the optimize all button down at the bottom to help address those items. Okay, and it gives you a nice little by sheet review summary of the things that could be optimized, as well as how many cells, which in my case, that's about a third of them could be optimized. The next couple items are going to be related to formula functions. Trim range, absolutely awesome. There have been workarounds that help you do kind of the same thing here for the longest time. This makes it even easier, more formal, and built into Excel. So what this does, if you use trim range to refer to a range or use it within other functions, is more the common way to do it. Notice that I'm referring over here to column AA, cells 13 through 508. Okay, so it goes way down here, giving us plenty of space to grow. What it's going to do is automatically trim it. If you don't put in these optional arguments, it's just going to trim it from the bottom there and say, hey, that's all we're going to need from both row mode and in column mode. Well, we only have one column here, so that makes it easy. This is one way to do it. The other way is even easier, is to use the dot operator shortcut, which is very similar to trim range. Okay, notice very, very similarly, we're referring to that big range over there on the right. But here, we're putting a dot after the colon, which means, okay, whatever the last cell is, trim all the blank stuff after that. Only return stuff that's not blank after that last one. If you put the dot before the colon, it'll trim everything on the front end. Okay, or you could use them both together. Huge for making dynamic ranges of cells. So when you think about the power of this, combining it with dynamic array functions of all kinds, absolutely huge. Again, this is a little bit new, so you might want to think about the backward compatibility. There are other ways to accomplish the same thing. They end up being a lot more complex than adding a period, but they can be done, and if you don't have a newer version of Excel, you might have to do that. Other new functions. Did you know that now you can build a pivot table-like structure with formulas? Pivot by is one example of that. Okay, so if we wanted to build a structure like the one that you're seeing right here, I like to highlight the cell that has the formula in green in this example just because it's not obvious. We've got the spilling happening here. So what we're doing is we're referring to a data set, and then we are applying whatever function we want here. So a lot of different arguments going on. First couple times you do this, it is a little bit complex. That's why I highly recommend examples like in the workbook here. But you're able to say, where are the row fields, where are the column fields, what function do you want to apply, etc. And then you have a whole lot of options on how deep to go, on how to sort, on how the subtotals and grand totals should be used, etc. So this first one, we've got it looking like that. This other one is a little bit more involved because now we have some of those other functions being, or those other arguments being used. So how deep are we going? Do we have a filter array, etc. A lot of options on how to do this. Okay. If you're a pivot table fan because you like the structure of how to summarize data, you'll probably love this, so give that a go. Similarly, you can use the group by function. Okay, so this is similar, it just won't have those row or the columns that you're going to pivot by. So if we look at this real quick, again, we can give it whatever summarization we want, sum, count, average, etc. And we're going to say, hey, what's the unique list of all this and what's the total for that? Okay. And then similarly, if you wanted to add some filtering, this one I've said, okay, well, it needs to be greater than month 3. So in this column over here, column C, that month needs to be greater than 3. So it's very similar to the logic you put in the filter function or an if statement, right? Additionally, the Microsoft team launched 3 new functions that help you do regular expressions. If you don't know what these are, they're a fairly complex way of identifying and dealing with patterns. So when you think about validation, awesome use case for that, or just how to deal with data. So there are 3 of them. The first one is just a test, true, false, okay? So in this case, we're looking for a pattern that includes any number of digits 0 to 9. So if there is any digit at all in the text string, it'll give us true. Well, the word banana, no, doesn't have that. Flour, no. Banana 5, it's got a 5 in there. There's an 8, there's a 1, okay? There's nothing in the word cheese. So it's just testing whether that pattern meets. Now, if you don't know how this works, most people don't. I like to joke that to do a regular expression pattern there, just let a cat dance on your keyboard, because that's kind of what it ends up looking like if you don't know how it works. There are several different regular expression tools out on the web. Just Google, regular expression, or you could even use AI to kind of help you build that pattern that you're looking for. Just make sure to stress test several different values to make sure it's working the way that you would expect. Okay, so that's one of them. Another is to extract the pattern that works. So in this case, we're going to extract a phone number. So if we have a long text string where the phone number is in there, or maybe it's in a sentence or something, maybe it's part of maybe you want to get the zip code out of an address. Another good example. You put your pattern there at the top, refer to that, and then it's just going to extract it for you. So it works extremely similar, but instead of outputting true to false, it extracts that part you're looking for. And then similarly, there's regex replace. Okay, so instead of, we don't want to see all these extra characters that don't have anything to do with numbers. Okay, this is great for data standardization and cleanup. Okay, we want to look for, within this text string, this pattern, and then replace everything that doesn't meet that pattern with the just blanks. Okay, so that's what we're doing in this one. The use cases for regular expressions are really limited to your imagination. Again, it's helpful for cleaning up data, for data validation, anytime you're looking for a very specific pattern. Okay, validating web addresses, emails, phone numbers, that is a great kind of examples for this kind of stuff. And then last but not least is Python. Python is one of the world's most popular programming languages, and it can now be injected directly into Excel. You would just come over here to the formulas menu. Notice you have the insert Python button there and some other related buttons, assuming you have a recent version of Excel. And you can do a lot of cool things for advanced statistical analysis, some charting and visuals, and even building really cool images like the one up here, which happens to be a word cloud. The word cloud just kind of takes words, and the more often they're used, it makes them bigger. Okay, so I've got a bunch of functions over here on the right. I did a random number of repeats for them. That's why you see the repeats on the right. And it uses column M here to build this word cloud dynamically. So if you wanted to look at, what does that look like in terms of the code that you would do to build a Python formula function or the code directly into Excel, just select a cell, go over here to insert Python, and then it will show the py over there letting you know it's Python. And then you will put in whatever the code is, like you're seeing right here in the formula bar, also repeated over here in the editor. And then once you press Control and Enter, it will then use the cloud to calculate this for you. Okay, it's that easy. There's not a whole lot of stuff to add unless you need a specialized Python library. It's automatically going to use some of the most common ones. So it outputs this image over here that you're seeing in cells A1 through H15 that were kind of merged together. So Python, really, really cool if you're doing some advanced stuff. All right, that's it. Now there's more stuff that's coming out here. We didn't even touch on Copilot and AI because one, that's just it's an extra add-on at this point for a lot of people, and they're doing so many changing things. I wanted to make this not go stale immediately. So just if you're not following people who are sharing some of the most latest and greatest things in Excel, definitely recommend that. Directly from the Microsoft team is one of the best ways to do that. But keep up with what's new, because there's some awesome things that make Excel so much more powerful. If you like this video, please give it a like. Tell us what you liked about it with the comments below. Share it with a friend or colleague you think would benefit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can see awesome tips, tricks, and some of the newest things that are coming out with Excel. Aside from that, you can download this workbook. If you want to try some of these things out, just hit up the link in the comments below. And in some of the other tools that I use all the time to save a lot of time and reduce errors, I'll link that as well down in the comments. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and have an excellent rest of your day.